Today on D&D House Rules, and now for something completely different, terribly silly cantrips. So here for House Rules number 8, I'm going to present terribly silly cantrips, which are just about as silly as Monty Python and the Ministry of Silly Walks. Alright, so the terribly silly cantrips that I use at my table, they come from a game known as Hackmaster. And many years ago, a comic strip was started by Kenzer and Company called Knights of the Dinner Table. You might be familiar with it. And the premise of the Knights of the Dinner Table comic strip was that people were sitting around playing a spoof version of Dungeons and Dragons. And over the years, people actually contacted Kenzer and Company and wanted that game made. And they did. And miraculously, for about 6 years, they had a license with Wizards of the Coast to actually use the first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons rules, what used to be called AD&D, and put together a version of Hackmaster. And it was so fun. Now, when the license expired, Hackmaster continued, and Hackmaster is now a serious world. In fact, the world they use is the Kingdoms of Calamar, which is another kick-butt world I enjoy very, very much. I remember one night I picked up their book on Drow, and I read it cover to cover like a novel, because for the Kingdoms of Calamar, they came up with a history of the Drow that is just like riveting. I mean, Game of Thrones has nothing on this. And of course, these Drow have never heard of Lolth. Lolth is not a thing in their culture. They've got their own reasons for being vile, nasty, and evil. And yeah, it involves betrayal and treachery, and it's you can read their gaming books like they're novels. I mean, you really can. But anyway, so in so the new Hackmaster, I guess it's been going for several years now. It's a serious world, but for about 6 years, they did kind of a spoofy version of D&D. They called it Hackmaster 4E, and there never were any first through third editions. That was part of the spoof. And they have some cantrips that I like a lot, and since you all know I run the Principalities of Glantry, which is a mage school for kids, and it was a mage school for kids years and years before J.K. Rowling came along and wrote about Harry Potter, there are cantrips like Wedgie and Nookie and Eye Gouge, Wet Willy. There's a cantrip called Loose Bladder, and the somatic component of loose bladder is to squeeze your fist, or you squeeze your hand into a fist slowly, like you're squeezing on somebody's bladder. And of course, if they fail their saving throw, then they're going to urinate right there. So I think these are vicious little cantrips that I think kids would use on each other in a magical school, because we all know kids are mean. And magical kids would be magically mean. So if these cantrips sound fun, then just talk to any of the NPCs in the universe. I'm sure they would be able to, share them, because this isn't like some high-level proprietary spell that some mage invented, that they're as their own unique spell that they're not going to share with you. But these are just common cantrips that mage kids would use on each other. They're fun, they're silly, and if they if they sound interesting, then you can certainly pick them up from NPCs or PCs who know them in the game. So if these cantrips sound fun to you, talk to some NPCs in the universe, or talk to some PCs who already have them. They're cantrips. This isn't like some dark, secret, proprietary ninth column spell that some NPC made that's just for them that they don't want to share. These are cantrips. They'll share them with anyone.